Hello everyone, this is Ray Savage with Cambium Networks. Thanks for joining our webinar today. And before we get started, I'd like to wish you all a Happy New Year and thank you for your business in 2015. We wish you all a very prosperous and great 2016. And what better way to start the year than planning for growth in 2016. So accordingly, what we did was scheduled up our LINKPlanner webinar. And our guest speaker today is Rachel Swindell, who is the Director of Engineering of the LINKPlanner product. And she's going to go through some of the new capabilities and features of the system. Before we get started, though, I just want to remind everybody the webinar is being recorded and it will be available for you on the Cambium community sometime later today. If you do have questions during the course of the webinar, please feel free to use the question and answer dialog box on the right-hand side of your screen, and we will try and get to all the questions during the course of the webinar. Well, without any further ado, Rachel, welcome to the group.
Thank you, Ray. And yeah, Happy New Year to you all from those of us in England as well. Welcome to this webinar. We're going to have a look at how to use LINKPlanner for those of you that are relatively new to it, planning both PTP and PMP networks, and then also take a look at some of the newer features that we've put in more recently since the last webinar. So we'll start with an introduction to LINKPlanner and then go through a bit of a step-by-step before getting on to the later features. Next slide, please, Ray. So what is LINKPlanner? It's, as it says, a free and easy to use link design tool. You can use it for all of Cambium's products, and your path profiles are provided automatically. There's no need to go off and find and download mapping data. Every time you create a link, LINKPlanner will provide the information for that link. It's not an area coverage tool, it's about links. We also have a lot of menus that are going to intelligently guide you through what our products do, what features are available. You can then create your bill of materials and proposal and installation reports to take you all the way through from first design through to your installation and analysing your network once it's in there. It's fully supported. You just have to simply email us if you've got any questions, queries, problems, requests on the email address below at the bottom of the screen there. And it comes to a group of us and you should always get an answer. Next slide, please. So when you first open up LINKPlanner, got a standard interface with a set of menu options and toolbar across the top, a navigation pane down the left-hand side, and when you select it up on the top project level, you have a map as the main function on the right-hand side. Depending on what you select on the left-hand side, the right-hand pane will change. And we'll show you some of those options as we go through the presentation. Next slide, please. So what products are supported in LINKPlanner? We have a number of unlicensed products in the sub-6 GHz band through the 450, 650, 700 EPMP are primary ones at this point in time, and licensed band we have the 800, 810 and the 820. In point-to-multipoint we have the EPMP, 450, 450i families. Those of you who are used to LINKPlanner may see a few old favourites missing here. These have recently been made obsolete, but they're actually still within LINKPlanner, and you can still look at projects that you may have planned with previous of our other products, and you can add on to those networks with our newer products. So nothing actually disappears, you'll always still be able to see those products. Next slide, please. So we'll now move on to the step-by-step, and we'll guide you through the installation and basic planning. So first of all, if you don't actually have LINKPlanner yet, it's very straightforward to get hold of it. You can follow this link on here, or if you go to the Cambium website, select products, and then up from under the list of software tools, you'll see the LINKPlanner option there. So either from that link or from the website, you go select the Download Now button partway down the page, and it will take you through to our support site. We also recommend that you get hold of Google Earth as well, because you can import and export between Google Earth and LINKPlanner, so it's quite useful to have it, but it's not compulsory and it's not actually required for LINKPlanner to work, so it's just a recommendation. We're moving on. Then if you don't already have a support account, if you've already got products from us and have used the support portal for other products, then you can log in using your existing account details. If you don't yet have one, then if you click the register button, you'll just get the screen shown here to create an account, put in your email address, and you'll get a password. And then it's a very simple, quick process to get connected up onto the support portal. Next slide. Yep, thank you. So once you're in the support portal, select the downloads option from the top menu bar, and then on the left-hand side, you'll see LINKPlanner partway down on the left under Planning Tools. Once you're on the LINKPlanner tab, then you have options to either select a Mac or Windows version. There's also the release notes for the latest release on there, which is a good idea to have a look through, see what we've added, changed, etc. There's the user guides available from here as well, but it's also available from within LINKPlanner, either as a browser or PDF, so don't worry if you haven't picked it up from the support portal. So once you've actually got download LINKPlanner, when you first open it up, if you go to the Tools Options section and set up your personal information in there, and the most important part about this is that you set up the email, and that one is the same email that you're going to use when you actually register to request an access token. So once your personal information is selected, select the option for Path Profile on the left-hand side, and then you'll see an option there to request an access token. This configures you onto our server so that when you've created your links, we'll automatically send you the path profiles. Once you've created your access token, then you can just copy it into the box. So at this point now, you're all ready to start planning, but you will need to sort of know a few details, such as where you're going to operate, the coordinates of your sites, have an idea of what kind of availability and throughput requirements you have, and ideally what frequency band you want to use. Once you know all of those, we can actually start planning links. So just as a quick summary here of what we're going to go through, and to show you side by side the PTP and the PMP planning process, so that you can see that the process is very, very similar for both PTP and PMP planning. So once you're familiar with one, it's quite simple to apply it to the other. And as we go through this presentation, we'll do some things on PTP and some on PMP, but the process is pretty much the same. So when we come to first opening up LINKPlanner, you see the initial page there, and that's got a few useful things on the main page where the linkplanner.ptp email address is there, so you can do a quick link to that if you want to contact us. There's also a link to the Cambium community forum, which we'll cover off in a bit more detail later on. And you can also connect through to some tutorials if you want to get a worked example of setting up some links. But if you just want to get going, then under File at the top left-hand side, select New Project, and it will open up to start a new project. So the first thing we need to do is get some sites in. We've got a number of different ways you can do this. You can select the project option from the menu, or the little tower icon just below it will create you a network site, and the three little blue circles will create you a subscriber site. So we have two different types of sites there. The network sites are sites you would use for your PTP links, and also for your hub sites where your access points are going to go. The subscriber sites are used for your SMs in a PMP network. If you've selected either the options from the project menu, the new network sites or the subscriber site options, you see you get a little menu box there to fill in where you can actually enter the latitude and longitude directly. But you can also import CSVs or KML files. If you're looking at the Google Map option, you can just point and click directly on the site. And we also have options through the CSV where you can bring in links for either PTP or PMP, so the links are already allocated, the two ends are connected. And the formats for those are shown in our user guide. Also, if you've created just one list of sites, you can also convert sites quite easily just by right-clicking on them and either changing them from network to subscriber or duplicating them if you want them as both. So once you've got some sites in there, then we can start creating links. Again, there's different options you've got from the menu bar. You can select the link icon up from the toolbar, and that will bring up the pop-up box you can see on the right-hand side here, where you can choose the two links. Or on the offline map the offline map itself is a very powerful feature where you can get access to quite a lot of things. And here again, you can either use a link icon on the map toolbar, and then you can just select a site and drag down to the next site. Or you can right-click on a site and say pick the Create Links from Here option and select it down to the next site you want to connect to. So that's very quick and easy. And as soon as you create the link, LINKPlanner will request the profile from our server and it will be added to the link. So pretty much by the time you've got into the next step to actually start defining the link, then your profile will be already populated into the link. So if we move on to defining the PTP link, so if you select the link from the navigation window or double click on it on the map, you'll get this, the window will change to give you the definition page here. And we need to work, it's very important we work from top left to bottom right, so we start and work across the page, starting with the frequency band, because everything else there, the menu options that you will see and the options within each of the drop-down boxes will change depending on the options you've chosen previously. So we will intelligently work out from the previous options you've made what the product supports and what options you can still have access to. And it will add new ones or change them depending on the products you've chosen. Just within the configuration at each end, just something to bring to your attention, you have some user limit boxes there next to the maximum EIRP and maximum power. We sometimes see people trying to set these to higher values. The user limits only work to provide a restriction from the default maximums shown. Because the default maximums we provide are the highest that are possible based on your product selection, your country limitations, bandwidth and modulation settings. And also there's an additional limitation to ensure that the power at one end of the link isn't going to provide a higher receive power at the other end of the link. So there's a number of automated things that are working in the background to ensure that the values we provide are the maximum you can use for that link. But if you want to actually further restrict those, then you have that option by selecting the user limit options. In the performance summary section, you can set your required throughput and availability targets. And the availability predicted in the adaptive modulation will be for the modulation mode, the lowest modulation mode that will actually support the throughput, the required throughput you've requested. If you're actually working in a fixed modulation mode, then it's not necessary to set the max IP required because that won't change anything. You just need to set the availability you're looking for. We can see that in this link I've set up here that the IP availability predicted is in red and shows that this doesn't meet our requirements. So at this point now we need to move on and optimize the PTP performance. And we can do that by changing the antenna size. So if we increase the antenna size to a 3-foot dish and look at the next slide, then we can see that the performance has improved. So now we can see that we've increased the predicted availability. It's changed from red to black, and the link's happy and meets the performance that we've asked for of it. In the performance details, we also show the information in either chart format, as you can see here, or you can select the Details tab and see a tabular format based on against each modulation mode. But these provide some sort of different ways of actually looking at the more details of the performance of the link. So that's a quick overview of some PTP links. So now if we're going to actually create a PMP network instead, what we need to do is to start by adding a hub site to one of the network sites we've created. Again, we've got different ways we can get to this, from icons on the toolbar, showing which will bring up a menu option there that we can see on the right hand side, or from the map where you can right click and create a hub. We only need to create one hub site for each network site, because they're just a sort of container that includes all the access points that are going to be on there. It's just a holding point, but it also allows us to allocate additional equipment to that site, which might be shared amongst multiple access points. So it's just a hub site's just a convenient place for us to allocate lots of equipment that's all going to be at the same physical location. So if we move on from there, as soon as we create a hub site, we will automatically create the first access point. So what we really need to do then is to configure the main parameters of this access point. And you can see in this little list here that we have in the middle of their access points, you can see the primary parameters of that access point, and you can configure them from here. But it's actually possibly easier if we go on to the next slide and look at the detailed AP parameters. So here we see a design window that's very, very similar to what we just saw with the PTP links. And on here, again, we want to follow that same principle of working from top left, moving across left to right, and then moving down the screen. It's very important that we set the max range correctly for a PMP access point, because that's going to dictate which subscribers we're allowed to connect to from across the network area, and also to get the antenna azimuth correct, because again that's going to have an impact as to which subscribers we can connect to. As you move across, you will see that there's some hover help over some of the boxes that's going to tell you the valid range of parameters. And one of the other things on an access point, when you come into the antenna configuration, the antenna selection only allows you to select cambium antennas. This is because we have incorporated within LINKPlanner the 3D antenna pattern of these antennas, which we use to determine the actual gain to each of the drivers. So it's not possible at the moment anyway to add third-party antennas for the access point. At the bottom of the screen here, you'll see there's a section on channel selection. We'll discuss this in more detail later on in the presentation. Sort of as a quick hint to some of the other more advanced tools we have on here, if you were to go into the navigation pane under product configuration, you could also select a PMP equipment template. It would show you a window very similar to this, but it would allow you to set up a default set of parameters for an access point, such that each time you then created new hub sites and new access points, if you're always using a similar equipment, similar band, these parameters could already be pre-configured for you, and you can set up a number of different templates and then choose which one you want to be the default one for new access points that you work from. So we've got one access point in, but it's usual that we're going to have more than one access point on a hub site. So again, we can either add these directly from the map, from the hub site where we can just choose the plus box to keep adding access points, or from the project menu options. Whenever you create new access points, they will have the parameters of the first one you've created on the site, so that's why it's important to ensure that first one is set up correctly before you start adding lots more. But also, as soon as you add new sites, then they will be offset. The antenna azimuth will be automatically offset by the beam width of the antenna. So if you're planning to have them all evenly distributed around the site, then this is a quick way where the azimuth angle will be updated for you. We do have the option on some of the antennas to choose between a nominal beam width, the 60 degrees that you see defined on the antenna, or an enhanced coverage, which goes approximately 15 degrees either side, so that if you are not going to populate with a full set of sectors, but you have some customers you have a lightly loaded sector that you want to stretch a little bit, then this allows you an option to give you a bit more coverage for fewer access points on a site. You can choose between these two options using the project properties on the main page, which is just above the map view.
Rachel, we did have one question come in from a network operator, and the question is, how do you choose a channel to operate in with the access point? Do you do that manually, or does it do it dynamically?
It's a manual process, and I've got a slide with a lot of more information on how we do channel planning a little bit further on in the presentation.
Excellent.
Okay, so we've now set up the access points on the site. So what we want to do now is to attach the subscribers to those access points. We talked a little bit earlier about how setting the max range and the azimuth angle of the access point is very important. Using the offline map view here, then we can quite clearly see which subscribers are within the coverage area. And we've got two subscribers just at the top of the map view that are outside of the sector, and so that shows us that if we wanted to cover those sites, we would need to increase the max range of that particular access point. We have a couple of sites, subscribers just to the right, circled in purple. If we wanted to cover those, then maybe we need to actually move the access point azimuth around to the right. And we have a few more subscribers highlighted in the light blue. Now they're both out of range and off bearing, and you would need to make some quite major adjustments to decide, but what you might decide is that you actually want that access point to cover all the customers in the purple and the light blue rather than the customers up in the dark blue. So an access point will, your first access point will always default to 0 degrees due north, but actually you may have a block of your customers are actually off at 50, 60 degrees, and so you need to make sure that you've adjusted the azimuth correctly before you start trying to attach your subscribers. So once you're sure that you've got subscribers covered by your access point, then we can move on to attaching them to the AP. And again, we have a number of different ways of doing this from the access point page. In the top right, you can select the plus button to add subscribers. You can also right-click on the access point on the map and select the attach subscribers option. Both of these will give you the little window on the bottom right of the screen here, and any subscribers that are not yet connected to the access point will be highlighted, and so therefore makes it very easy to see which ones you may have already connected before and which ones are still not connected. So you can select the SMs you want to add there. I mean, it is possible to add a subscriber multiple times onto the same access point. You may have a subscriber site that represents an apartment block, for instance, and you have different subscribers on different floors in that apartment block. And if you add a subscriber site multiple times, once you've done that, you can go into the details on each subscriber and change the default name for that subscriber so that you can clearly identify which one's which. Once you've actually connected subscribers, if you then changed either the maximum range or the beam width of the antenna or the azimuth, you may find that those subscribers are no longer under the coverage area of the access point, and so they will turn red on your LINKPlanner screen, and if you hover over them you'll see that they'll have an error reading of out of range. And so that will, you just need to be careful when you're adjusting your network design that it might mean that some customers go out of coverage.
Rachel, we have a second question that came in, and the customer is asking, there are many types of subscriber module radios. How do we select between 2.4 or 5 gigahertz? And if I remember correctly, back at the start, you said you work from the top left of the access point page to the bottom right, and that frequency is one of the first things that you select. Have I got that right?
Yes, you've got that perfectly right, Ray. So we usually expect people to have an idea of which frequency band they want to work into. I mean, if you want to compare the performance at different frequency bands, then it's quite easy to duplicate or copy links from either one project to another project, or to duplicate things within a project and then compare them by running them at different frequency bands so that you can see the impact of changing a frequency band. Depending on the frequency band you're in, it may restrict which products are available to you, as different products work in different frequency bands. Not all of them are supported in every frequency band. But you set the frequency band at the access point rather than at the SM. The SM will always take the same frequency band that's set on the access point.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So as we see now, when you come to set up the SM equipment, quite a number of the items shown on here are fixed because they're inherited from the access point, and you can only change them at the access point and not at the subscriber level. So things like the frequency band, as we just discussed, and the country, they're all inherited, the bandwidth that you're going to use. We've put them back on here at the SM level just to reiterate what you're working at, and so that it's a reminder for when you're looking at the performance of an SM that you have the details of the access point that it's connected to. For each of our different PMP products now, we do have a selection of different SMs you can choose from, so there will be a drop-down list for the product, and you can also sometimes choose the max mod mode you want to have, set the antenna you want to use, the height that your SM is going to be at. So there's a few things that you can configure. As we talked earlier as well, we said that the access point, we have a 3D pattern of the antenna in there, and so although an access point antenna may have a nominal gain of 16 or 17 dBi, the gain that that SM actually sees, depending on its position with respect to the access point, can be quite different from this. And so in the antenna configuration section in the middle of this page on the right hand side, you can see the AP antenna gain, and at that point that's where we actually show you what we predict is the antenna gain that SM will see from the AP, so that we're showing you both the SM antenna gain and the AP antenna gain at the subscriber level.
Okay, and we did have one other question that at what point does terrain come into play here, because the network operator is commenting that in the coverage of an AP, it's kind of a pie-shaped circular standard shape. Is the performance further modeled by the terrain profile on this chart, or is there some other place where that gets taken into account?
Okay, when we actually just set up the access point to determine which subscribers we can try to connect, then at that point it is just a simple pie-shaped chart which is determined by the beam width of the antenna and the max range that you've selected. But when you actually come down and look at each SM in detail, then the path profile will be taken into account and any diffraction loss will be applied. So when you look at the performance of the individual SMs, then the profile of of the terrain is taken into account, and we're just about to move on to how we add obstructions and we look at the path profile.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Good timing.
Well, good. The other question is, at what point do we take interference into account? So I'll move to the next slide for you there.
Okay. Well, actually, could you just go back to the previous slide a second?
Oh, sure.
Because just there in the just below where the antenna configuration is, where we show the power section, there's actually a box there that says interference. And if you check that box, then you will get an option up to put in the background level interference at that point. So at the access point level and at the PTP link level as well, you have similar boxes available to you where if you know what the interference level is in the area, you can apply that within most of our PTP links. We have capabilities for you to measure the background interference, and then you can add that back into your link plan and see the impact on the performance. So we have the capability where you can add the interference in, and this has an impact on the predicted performance of the link in the summary below that.
Okay, and that interference could be ambient interference, but you could also use that same function to deal with self-interference?
Correct. You can use it for either.
Perfect. All right. Thank you.
So, so when we come to move on to the next section, we're looking at the obstructions on the path. What I'm going to discuss here for obstructions applies equally for PTP links and PMP links. It's very important to ensure that the terrain profile is accurate and whether there are any man-made obstacles, trees, hills that are in the way that haven't been taken into account in the SRTM data that we download. Depending on the type of link and the kind of availability you're looking for, might depend on how important it is to you as to whether you do actual site surveys. A site survey obviously greatly improves the chance of success during the planning, and if you're going for high availability PTP links, then it's always recommended that you would conduct a site and path survey before you're deploying and commissioning a link. The SRTM data that we download does have some allowance for if you have large areas of contiguous buildings or forest areas, but again in the northern hemisphere the data was taken in February, so if it's a large area of deciduous forest and all the leaves are off the trees, then it's probably not going to show you the true height of the trees, so you do need to take this into account. So we do recommend that you take a look at Google Earth at one point, because that's now a really good resource to be able to have a good idea of what's underneath the path, and you can also use that if you've got trees and things. You've got to remember that when we add obstructions that we should always allow for tree growth as well as what we think the tree height is at the moment. So if we just go on to the next slide, then we can see how we can add these obstructions into LINKPlanner. So when we see the path profile in LINKPlanner, then we can see the blue elliptical area shows the Fresnel zone, and the width of that area will vary depending on the frequency band you've chosen and the length of the link. As in this case, then we can see that it comes very close to the brown line, which is the edge of the terrain profile contour that's been brought in, and therefore this is definitely a link where you'd want to have a closer look at what's actually happening around those peaks that are quite close to the Fresnel zone. If you have a really large gap between the Fresnel zone and the profile, then you know that you've got a good degree of tolerance to account for a reasonable amount of obstruction height. But if you're within sort of 10 to 20 meters, you ought to be thinking about taking a closer look at what's happening on there, because if the link isn't line of sight, then you're going to need the additional loss taking into account. So if you want to add obstructions, simply right-click on the profile and it brings up this little profile editor that you can see on the right-hand side. And at that point, you can either click on the profile at the location you want to be, and it will highlight the appropriate square on the profile editor, and then you can add in the height of your obstructions at that point. It's also possible to, using the plus keys and things, to actually add in new terrain heights. So if you've got a short link and haven't got very many points in it, but you want more detail, you can add in additional points. And if, for example, that you know for some reason that the all the automated tools that bring in profiles, whether it's from SRTM, whether it's from Google Earth, there are always places where they don't do as good a job as the detailed mapping that you may have from your local area. And so if you want to actually adjust the terrain height, then that's also possible. You can edit the files. Just remember that if you were to re-import the profile, it will overwrite the edits you've put in. There's also a little spreadsheet box in the top right-hand corner here of this profile editor, and so you can actually export the profile out to Excel, and it's also possible then to edit or bring in a profile from a different mapping source and paste it back into LINKPlanner through that process as well. And there's more information in the user guide as to the formats and how to do that.
Yeah, Rachel, we have one network operator that just wants to share the situation where LINKPlanner showed an obstruction, something like a water tower, but it was not actually blocking the link. So I think what we're talking about here is, keep in mind you're working with an estimation tool. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. I mean, we use a standard it's a freely available set of data because we make it available to everybody. So there's usually license restrictions on most other data sets. It's continually being updated, and we've recently updated to the SRTM v3, I think it is, version. But they're taken from radar responses, and there are places where that doesn't always work so well, where you may get false readings coming back. And so there are some places where the data isn't as good as we would like. There's places where the averaging doesn't do as good a job as we would hope for. So there's never anything that beats local knowledge when you come to do this. And so it's always good to sanity check what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so and on this particular link we added in some obstructions. It added in a bit of excess loss, and so we now come to actually look at the performance of this link. We have the capability now in PMP mode to set either a mod mode that we want to look at, or an availability. So the defaults for this is that it would default to the lowest modulation mode and 99% availability for a PMP link. But in the PMP side, then the max usable mode that it will show is the highest modulation, which achieves the availability you've set. And we can see here that on this link at the SM, it's saying that the max usable mode is going to be only MCS1. On the predicted availability, shows the availability of the minimum required modulation mode you've asked for. And in this case here, we've asked for MCS10, and it's showing that link can only achieve that at 83% on the SM. So this looks like that if we want to get this link to actually meet our requirements, we need to do some adjustment on it in the same way that we did with the PTP side. Obviously on a PMP network it's not always quite so easy to adjust the access point, especially if that's already been deployed. But here, so we would look at changing the SM antenna first to see what impact that has. And the next slide will show us what happens. So and here we're going to actually just go to the antenna configuration and change from an integrated antenna to an antenna with a reflector dish on it. And then moving on, we'll see how that's impacted the link. What we have to remember is that depending on the band and country selected, increasing the SM antenna gain may only improve the downlink performance. It might not improve the uplink if you're already hitting the EIRP limits that are allowed by your country. But in this case, we can see that we've made an improvement in both the downlink and the uplink, and that we can now actually achieve a max mode of MCS 10 and above 99% for both links. In the middle, we can see the prediction of the lowest mode availability. We can see some information now about the gain margin, the fade margin that you have at lowest mode, the amount of excess path loss that we're incurring on this link due to the obstructions we've put in, and hence the total path loss of the link. When we looked at the PTP links, we saw the chart version of the performance details. Here in the PMP, we show the performance details in a tabular form, and you can see the fade margin for each of the modulation modes and the availabilities and expected time in mode for each mode. And we'll be adding to this information in future releases as we go on. So that's just a quick way to look at how we might improve the performance of a single SM. On the access point page, you also have a performance summary for the access point, and this takes into account the modulation modes used in the uplink and downlink for all the SMs connected to that access point, and shows you a prediction of the expected throughput for the access point. This is very similar to for those of you who've used the capacity planner spreadsheet that's available on the Cambium website for both 450 and EPMP. You won't see exactly the same results between the two tools, although the format's very similar. This is showing you the information that you would see on the sector throughput calculator tab of the capacity planner. On the capacity planner, it doesn't really actually know exactly where the SMs are with respect to the access point, and therefore it makes an offset factor to account for the fact that not everything's going to have the max gain of the AP, whereas as we've seen in LINKPlanner, it's actually accounting for the gain from the access point antenna to each individual SM. So at this point, you're not having to put in any fudge factors, if you like, to adjust the capacity. This is taking into account the actual performance for every SM. And so now we'll get to the channel plans. That was the question asked earlier. So in the project configuration tab in the navigation pane on the left-hand side, one of the options is channel plans. If you select that, then there are a number of options in here. The option to create plans in the middle of the list on the right-hand side will actually set up a default plan for each of the product configurations that you have in your project. Alternatively, you can just select the new channel plan and set it up yourself. The plans each plan is specific to the band, the product, the country, and the bandwidth that are defined for a given access point, because all of those factors affect which channels are actually available for the user to use. You can create multiple plans for the same equipment configuration if you want to have a different set of plans to be used in different areas where the number of channels allow it. You don't have to use channel plans when you're defining your network, but when you do allocate specific channels, especially if you're using some of the band edge channels, then LINKPlanner will also incorporate any of the band edge backoffs that are required for those channels. You can rename the channels so that they make sense to you, and also you can duplicate channels in the same plans in the same project or copy them from one project to the other, simply right-click on the channel plan you want to copy, and then you'll get a set of options from that. When you actually come to allocate the channels, again, recommend that you work from left to right. When you allocate the first channel, you will see a long list of channels depending on the raster you've selected, and those are set for the band that you've chosen, the product and the country, and so you can see all the options that are available. Select your first channel, and then you can, when you move on to select channel 2, it will change that list of channels so that it will take into account the channel you've selected on channel 1, its bandwidth, and ensure that the options available in channel 2 don't overlap. So there's a number of other things, whilst trying access back, that we can also do for the channel plans. You can set the colours. You can either right-click on the channel and just change it, or you select the channel and then select the colour option. I've shown here as a default that there are 4 channels available for each channel plan. Depending on the band you've chosen and the amount of available spectrum and the bandwidth, you may or may not be able to allocate all of those 4 channels. So you might, but equally some bands have options to have a lot of channels in, especially if you've chosen a small bandwidth. So if you want to have more channels available, you can select the increase channels plus button, or select the decrease channels if you want fewer channels in your channel plan. When you've defined a channel plan that matches the configuration, exactly the same configuration of the AP, then if you remember when we were on the access point equipment, we could actually see the options to see the channel plans, and so you can select those. But equally on the offline map, again, you can do it directly from the map, and then this will allow you to quickly pick up and show the color build up as you start selecting those channels across your network, and then you can easily see where you're getting repeats or back-to-backs or whatever. So having done all of that, your network's pretty much designed, but what you want to know is your bill of materials. So again, on the navigation pane, you go down to bill of materials, and we can see it's split up into options for the equipment you need for your PTP network, the equipment you need for the network side of your PMP, so all your hub and access point equipment, and your subscriber equipment. If you select the export to Excel workbook, you'll get a big Excel project file where it's all, you'll get a full project option, and you'll see the bill of materials for all your individual links. When you're on a PTP link or the access point, you can also see the bill of materials at the bottom of that for each one, and at that point you can also add optional extras in them, as well as the default equipment we put in. And then to finish up, when you're planning a network, you get into the field and install and optimize. Remember that Cambium does offer courses covering installation configuration, and that LINKPlanner will create you installation reports, so don't forget to give these to your installation teams to help them during the planning, during the installation and build of the network. So we'll now move on to just look at some of the new features we've put in, starting with some recent additions on the product side. So we've added in the Force 180 and the 200 antenna options for the SMs for ePMP. In the 450 family, we've added 900 megs to the 450i. We've also now added the ability to interoperate between 450 and 450i. So if you selected 450 on an access point, you can now deploy 450i SMs, or on a 450i access points, you can choose between the full range of 450 and 450i SMs. PTP 820 supports release 8.2 now, and we've added in the remote mount capability. That also gives you access to some of the larger antenna dishes that we've been using on our PTP 800, 810 products, so that brings in a few more options there. And on the general side, then we've added availability predictions to the SM. We covered that in the as we went through the SM definition earlier. Link formatting rules. So this gives pretty much the same things that we have already had for PTP. There's a knowledge base article on the Cambium community that takes you through more detail about how to configure and set those up. Following feedback from users, we've actually recently updated the format of the installation reports and separated it into 2 separate tables to separate out the physical installation information if you have a specialist installation crew going out, and then the commissioning information. We've also brought the BOM a bit closer up to the top of the installation report just to make it a little bit easier, but we appreciate your feedback on that. So one of the new features we've added, and the bigger features we've added just recently, is the BOM Estimator tool. The aim of this is to take advantage of all the intelligence that you've seen that we have in LINKPlanner to guide you through what products are available and what configurations, but without actually having to create links, so that you can get a fairly quick estimate of what a whole network may look like, and we'll just go through quickly a couple of slides on that just to finish off. So again, it's the BOM Estimator option is selected under Project Configuration on the left-hand side, and then we have the top couple of tabs allow you to set up either PTP configurations or PMP configurations. In both of those, you can have multiple link configurations within your network. So you may have some unlicensed links, you may have some license band links in different frequency bands. You set up a configuration for each one, and then simply under the link quantity say how many of each link type you have. And then again, in the same way we just looked at the bill of materials section, you get the three separate sections of the bill of materials, and you can export this BOM to Excel, and it will give you the same workbook format that we have on the main network. If you export the BOM to Excel, then you can send that off to your sales representative and to pick up a quote if you want to get an idea of pricing. So moving on to a quick look at a PTP link, you'll see that it looks very, very similar to how we set up a basic PTP link. You've got most of the same options, but we've cut it down slightly so that you only actually see the options which affect what goes into the BOM, rather than things that's in the more detailed side where you have to set up things that affect the performance of the link. Here we're only interested in items that change the equipment you need to purchase. Again, work from left to right, top to bottom, and that sets things up. So for the PMP network, same thing at the top, you set up how you want the access point network layer to be created. You only set that up once and assume that all your APs have the same configuration, and then below that you can set up the total number of subscribers that you need, and it gives you the different options of the different subscriber products that you have available to you. And again, you can fill in the boxes. The two bold options for connectorized and integrated give you a running tally of how many you've added in below that, and up in the top blue line for subscriber modules you see the total number of subscribers on the network. Just one point, if you add connectorized SMs into your network, if you don't actually add any external antennas for those, then it will just put a little warning triangle by you reminding you that you don't actually have any antennas to go with it. For both this and the PTP, again, you can add the optional extras in so that you can finish that up. Just remember that for the PTP side, especially if you add optional extras, then they will be multiplied up. So that sort of completes the list of everything we've got. There's a lot more things LINKPlanner can do, a lot of advanced features we haven't covered here. Quite a lot of these are covered by features on the Cambium Community Knowledge Base, so please do look at that, and they're documented in the user guide. So please take a look at both of those to help you get the most out of LINKPlanner.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Rachel. To get the latest information from Cambium Networks, we have a lot of new things going on. You can follow us on your favorite social media, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Google+, or Weibo. And Rachel has mentioned the Cambium community many times, and that's a free source of information. Just go to community.cambiumnetworks.com. There you'll find discussion forums on LINKPlanner and all of our products. We have areas in different languages. Talks about, and we also have a knowledge base with a lot of information on LINKPlanner and also. And if there's something that the system doesn't do, as Rachel has said, we really do respond to customer input. There's an area there where you can submit your development ideas. And we do review those prior to each software release. So a lot of the capabilities of the product actually reflect things that network operators need. In addition to that, we love hearing from network operators like yourself about what you're doing with our solutions. And we have an area called Your Stories where you can post screenshots, photographs, and share your experiences with LINKPlanner and our products. As I mentioned at the start of the webinar, the session has been recorded, and we will be posting that live to the community so that if you do have any additional questions, you can post those on the community. Rachel and the LINKPlanner team are always in there taking a look at that. And we do thank you for your time today and look forward to seeing you on future webinars. Thanks, everybody.